Live from a NASCAR bunker in Kyle's parents' basement, it's Turn the Radio Off with Mike Parsons and Kyle Bauer.
Turn it off, turn it off, turn the radio off. Don't you know we're turning into zombies? Turn it off, turn it off, turn the radio off. Try yourself for once in your life.
Become a fan at Facebook.com/TTRO Show. Follow along on Twitter.com/TTRO Show. Or just listen right now. It's Turn the Radio Off.
So David Bowie's dead.
Yes, he is.
Breaking news. If you didn't know, Kyle, I hate to break it to you that way.
I loved him in the film Starman.
I've never heard of it.
See, God damn it, that has gone over everybody's head. And I opened with that joke because I wanted to complain that on Facebook I made that joke yesterday and it went right over everyone's head.
What was the
God
joke?
Damn it.
Is it a Simpsons reference?
David Bowie, one of his famous singles was Starman.
Okay.
It was a huge hit for him, arguably his biggest hit. And there was the 1980, but not to be confused with the 1984 film starring Jeff Bridges and Karen Allen.
Okay.
Called Starman.
Was David Bowie in that?
No.
Oh.
That was the joke. And nobody understood the joke. People were going along with the joke as if he was in the movie.
Well, thank you for...
because they don't know shit either.
Well, thank you for opening up the podcast with a joke that you know nobody would get.
They just liked... Okay, first, Starman, great song. Okay?
Not to be
Starman,
confused with Spoon Man by...
great movie.
Kyle, if you're going to talk about a movie that nobody's seen and a song that nobody's heard of, what's your audience for this joke?
Okay,
Pitchfork.com?
No, it's not Pitchfork.com.
The same Midtown hipsters
Starman
that you rail against.
Was a popular movie. My parents didn't have too many movies on VHS, but they sure as hell had Starman on VHS.
But David Bowie wasn't in it, right? I'm so confused right now.
It's not confusing. One was a song. One was a movie.
This segment is a disaster already.
It's not.
Thank you.
No, it's not. Okay, it was a John Carpenter film.
Here. This is what your joke sounds like going over. Like a lead balloon.
It was a John Carpenter film. John Carpenter is a very popular filmmaker.
Right.
Was a very popular filmmaker, thank you.
He made Halloween.
He's made some movies that you love, Mike. And this one wasn't about slashing sexualized teenagers. This one was a romance story. It was one of the great love stories of our time about Jeff Bridges. He's a truck driver or some shit. He gets shot in the chest by a mugger. It was the 80s. You know, all black people had guns back then, went around shooting people in movies. And... actually, I don't think that's what happened at all. Anyway, the point is that Jeff Bridges dies, and an alien comes back to Earth.
Right.
Well, comes to Earth and takes the form of this poor widow's husband.
Please keep the synopsis short.
And of course, the government is trying to get him. All right, and she has to save him, and then he's shot again somehow. I can't remember the film. The point is I liked it.
Sounds boring.
It's not boring. It's a great movie.
Kyle, sorry.
And clearly, nobody knew what the hell this film was about. Why didn't anybody watch Starman? Starman is a great movie, and I need to watch it again, clearly, because, I mean, to be honest, I just remember the guy, alien, comes back, takes the form of this dead guy. His wife is happy, but she's conflicted. I don't know, something about the government. He's... A lot of gunfire. I don't know.
Kyle,
There's a scene in the back of a semi-truck where I think she bangs him.
Kyle, sorry nobody saw your stupid movie.
It's not a stupid movie, Mike.
I'm sure your Starman joke was very funny to the 4 people who saw the movie.
A lot of people saw the movie. I'm going to pull up the numbers on Starman.
No, please
right now.
don't. Please don't.
It was a pop... Okay.
I haven't seen... I just heard of Starman 4 minutes ago, and I already hate it.
Okay, all right. Now, it cost $24 million to make.
Okay.
Well spent.
Okay.
And it took in $28 million at the box office. In 1984, that's not bad money.
All right.
That's not bad money in 1984.
Well, there you go.
Actually, it's very, very underwhelming.
You just heard
probably.
more Starman
Jeff
talk
Bridges was nominated
than
for Best
anybody
actor.
For that movie.
The film inspired a short-lived television series of the same name, probably on CBS.
It was called Alf.
I don't know.
It was about
Alf.
it was about a furry alien who moved into a family and tried to eat their cats. Could you imagine, Kyle?
Oh, Alf would be dead in a minute. He would not survive in my house.
Could you imagine just, a lot of people, I guess that was comedy back in the 80s, the thought of Alf, a talking alien eating cats.
Cats weren't popular up until about 7 years ago.
But
a lot of people hated cats until 7 years ago, until YouTube.
Can you just imagine the horrific scene that it would look like if you actually saw Alf eating a cat?
I'd be terrified, and I would kill the cat.
You would kill the cat or Alf?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was busy reading the synopsis of Starman.
Okay. Well, you know what? We're gonna not talk about Starman.
Yes, we are.
Ever again.
The story goes. All right. The U.S. government shoots down an alien aircraft.
You have 45 seconds left to talk about Starman. So make it quick.
The floating ball of glowing energy that was the
you.
Starman finds the home of the recently widowed Jenny Hayden, played by Karen Allen. While there, the alien uses a lock of hair from her deceased husband, Scott, to clone a new body for himself as the terrified Jenny watches.
30 seconds.
The alien Starman has several small silver spears in which he can provide energy to perform miraculous feats. He uses the first to send a message to the people that Earth is hostile. He uses then to create a holographic
15 seconds.
Jenny is
10 seconds. Hurry up.
Wait, hold on. In 3 days he'll die. Hold on. Wait. Oh, wait. He resurrects a dead deer. I remember that.
All right, 45.
That was awesome.
It doesn't matter. No one's listening to this anymore anyway. They've all run to Netflix and Redbox to get their copy of Starman.
That's right.
All right. But, Kyle, in all seriousness...
it was a good joke, damn it.
Well, like I said, to the 4 people
and
who
everyone just goes ahead like they think, like they don't know what they're talking about, clearly, because they thought that Bowie was in a movie called Starman.
That's what I thought. So did people...
And people are like, oh, I'm going to get my copy of so out.
Right.
No, because I'm not talking about David Bowie. I am being ironic.
Right.
I am spoofing everyone's sentiments,
Kyle,
which was rude of me, but I didn't care because I thought I was making a clever joke, and it turns out that I have realized through this that the great 1984 film Starman has been lost to time.
All right, well, Kyle, if we continue talking Starman, I'm going to murder one of the two of us.
Time can change me, but I can't change time.
Is that a Starman lyric? A lot of people, Kyle, a lot of people were posting their favorite Bowie lyric. I've got to be honest. By the time I was born, David Bowie was no longer mainstream. So, the people our age who got into Bowie, they either got into him because of Labyrinth or...
I love Labyrinth.
Or because of a T-shirt they bought at Kohl's.
The Man Who Fell to Earth, which was about Bowie playing an alien who fell to Earth. Maybe people thought that was the Starman movie.
Maybe. I don't know.
It came out around the same time.
He's done
possibly.
He's done so much space-inspired stuff that people probably just figured it was an obscure reference.
It was a good movie. It was a good movie. It was a good joke, and it was a good song. I thought it was sound all the way across the board. Nobody got it, but everybody played along because they're idiots.
Yeah, I guess.
People forgot about Starman just like they forgot about Bowie banging that 13-year-old.
Yeah, you know what? Someone on my list said that David Bowie was one of history's least punished child molesters. And then he said, you don't want to fall down the rabbit hole of Googling your favorite rock stars. What was that all about? He banged a... Did he... What's the story behind that?
Okay, well, to recant, it's a bit loaded, but he got into a relationship with a girl who was, basically pubescent.
Uh-huh.
And there were actually multiple instances of this, but they were all deemed consensual, so no one ever pressed any charges or anything or really went after him. But then there was one rape accusation in the 70s. So I don't know. There's some really loaded stuff there. I mean, basically it was deemed that it was statutory rape.
Uh-huh.
But he was never charged because no one chose to press charges. Ted Nugent did something similar, too.
Well, you know what? These guys may have been in similar situations as Cosby, and they either used their influence or their money to make it go away. And we were talking about Cosby apologists last week and how they're out of their mind. This would probably be their one legitimate gripe, quote unquote legitimate, is, you know, everyone's going after Cosby. How come no one's going after these, these white guys? Your David Bowies, your Woody Allens. And I would say at least that part of their argument, they have a point.
Yeah, especially Woody Allen, too.
Woody Allen's, that was creepy.
That just kind of keeps going away. Like, people keep bringing it back up, but then it just keeps going away. That actually is a really good counter to the Bill Cosby stuff.
Hold on. Let's see. Who was it Sissy Spacek or Sissy Spacek's daughter? Who it was at one of the last Academy Awards, and it was like his stepdaughter or his half-daughter wrote this very long piece about, the man you're cheering did this, this, and this to me. And I was never a huge Woody Allen fan to begin with, but that made me glad I wasn't, because what she was saying was just disgusting and abusive. And, if I was a fan of Woody Allen, I wouldn't be able to be one after that. But that's the thing, Kyle. The more I start to learn about these entertainers, whether they're actors or they're directors or they're musicians, the less I want to know. Because it seems like the more you learn about these famous creative types who they get surrounded by money, they get surrounded by yes men, and eventually they lose touch with reality, the more you realize these aren't the type of people that you're going to want that you want to support.
And it's almost to the point where you just have to think it's circumstantial math. And I don't say that in a way to excuse these things from happening, but
you're just stating a fact.
You play the averages. How many people are famous out there? How many people are idolized? Well, they're still people. People do bad things. And, you get enough famous people in one room, I bet more than a couple of them have done some, pretty awful things, and they have been covered up or swept under the rug. Or, it's kind of like people with the NFL and other pro sports, the NHL. I think I drew parallels last week when we were talking about Cosby to the Patrick Kane situation this past offseason and how awful it is. And if you put all the NHL players in a room, all the NBA players in a room, all the Major League Baseball players in a room, NFL and so on, just by law of averages, there's going to be a couple guys in each room at least who have raped someone, assaulted someone, maybe physically, or have driven drunk,
right?
Or maybe even got It's unfortunately it's a very disgusting and unfortunate truth, and part of breaking down rape culture. And breaking down these entitlements to these people is getting them out there in the open, like what we've been seeing lately.
Well, and my theory is, Kyle, the longer somebody is famous, the longer they are culturally relevant, the longer they have money, the better the chances are that they've done something effed up. Because I feel like, whenever somebody first starts off on their career path that catapults them to notoriety, they're probably a little more down to earth at the beginning, right? Because they're struggling, they're tied to the person that they were while they were building their career. But after 5 years, a decade, they've been living in another world.
Right.
They've been living in a world where there's no accountability, where whatever they want, no matter how messed up it is available to them.
Bowie lived in another world in almost every way. I mean, technically he was on Earth, but
yeah,
I mean, everything from his personas. He obviously was someone who was mentally somewhere else, and yes, he aged, he mellowed, he met his beautiful wife in the early 90s, and he kind of, towards the end, as a lot of musicians, a lot of famous people do, kind of became a sage, really kind of soaked up his iconic figure. And people remember him fondly. But it's really interesting to think that we're hearing about this, me, for the first time in the wake of his death. Now, it's really interesting because normally, when do you see someone get schmoozed the most?
After they're dead.
After they're dead. And I think it's really speaking to where we're coming out as a culture, and I think a lot of this has to do with feminism, and people of, I guess, marginalized people feeling like they have more of a voice or feeling more galvanized, that you're hearing in the wake of an icon's death. You're hearing that, there was a rape case against him in the early 70s. There were statutory rape issues, actually that rape case was cleared in the 80s.
Okay.
And then the statutory the statutory issues happened back in the 70s. So I'm just hearing about this now, and it's funny that this is brought to a head after he dies, and I think it says where we're going now. And I wonder if Cosby was kind of a tipping point for that.
Well, I have to be honest, Kyle. Among all the Bowie post-death talk, there's only been two people that I've heard bring it up.
Yeah, same here. It's only been a couple people.
My Facebook friend and you. But, yeah, you know what? Maybe people are more sensitive to it because of what's been going on. And plus, I mean, nowadays with social media, things, they get legs. Case in point, Bill Cosby rape accusations in 2006, Bill Cosby rape accusations in 2015, and plus people have an outlet. So that one person who remembers that those rape allegations against David Bowie and the statutory rape accusations against David Bowie, well, now they've got a bigger platform to kind of put that out there and for it to get picked up and spread around.
It's interesting because it's something that you wouldn't expect to see, and something else you wouldn't expect to see.
What?
Jeff Bridges get a rape accusation.
Yeah. Hey, look.
You know what movie he was in?
We're
the 1984 film Starman.
We are late
the
for a
sci-fi
break.
Romance.
You're listening
thriller
to Turn
Starman.
The radio
brought
off.
A deer back to life with his special alien powers. It's sweet.
On the internet.
Less rock, more talk. Turn the radio off.
Become a fan at peoplehatemypodcast.com.
Welcome back. For 25 years, he's never rolled over about fighting crime. Welcome McGruff the Crime Dog.
Thanks, Joy. I got 2 words to make streets safer. Coffee cake.
Yeah, the crook eats the poison coffee cake. And
No, you invite neighbors over for a cup of coffee to discuss the problems on your street and what to do about them.
But still, a 10-pound cake dropped on a bad guy's foot could help.
Couldn't hurt. Going to WePrevent.org could help, too.
A message from the U.S. Department of Justice, Crime Prevention Coalition of America, National Crime Prevention Council, and the Ad Council.
Turn the radio off. Tell your friends about us. Make them like us on Facebook.
I am not sure if we are broadcasting properly.
Turn the radio off. Online and worldwide. TTROshow.com.
So every time there's a celebrity death, there's always someone who thinks they're an amateur psychic saying, these things always happen in threes, which I don't really think these things happen in threes, but what happens is celebrities, people die every day, and celebrities die every day, so once two people of note kind of die close to each other, you're keeping an eye out for that third one, and then inevitably someone somewhat famous dies, and you say, "See, it happens at threes." So Lemmy from Motorhead, David Bowie, both were kind of sudden. Both were either performing or putting out music right up to the end. And, David Bowie, some people were saying that he knew that he didn't have much time left with cancer, so he kind of put that last album out, that Lazarus, which...
Yeah, I'm curious to hear his last album, because multiple people said before he died and before they knew he was sick that it was great.
Yeah.
There was a quote-unquote return to form for him.
Yeah, and, look, if you're an artist and, you have a certain amount of time and you can kind of put out an album and a video as sort of a goodbye to your fans, I mean, that's very shrewd marketing, I guess, so to speak. And it's I hate using the term drop the mic, Kyle, because it's almost as bad as win the internet, but it's kind of the ultimate drop the mic moment. But if I were morbid and messed up enough, Kyle, to participate in a celebrity death pool, which I'm not, I'm
That's good.
I'm far above it. But if I was, I would definitely put Sean Penn in that celebrity death pool.
Oh, now, back months ago, when Donald Trump was a mere, I guess, humorous sideshow, frivolous candidate for president of the United States.
When he was a loudmouth yet lovable boob that didn't seem bat spit crazy.
Right. We talked about El Chapo possibly offing him.
Right. El Chapo, the very powerful Mexican drug lord, and those Mexican drug cartels are no joke. I mean, they're stronger than many municipalities and even some branches of the Mexican military. El Chapo was head of a very powerful Mexican drug cartel. He busted out of a American prison, right? In July.
No, it was a Mexican prison.
I could have sworn it was a U.S. prison, but
if it was right on the border. Well, I can't remember for sure.
He busted out of prison in July. He's been on the lam. Him and Donald Trump have exchanged words. And last week, El Chapo was captured again. And there's been this controversial interview that Sean Penn did for Rolling Stone, which he did the interview back in October, but it hasn't been published yet. Rolling Stone, now that El Chapo has been captured, they're rushing to print it, which, 3 months to publish an interview, I don't know how that's rushing. But Sean Penn was able to broker an interview.
It was barely coherent, and now they're rushing to clean it up and get it to print.
Right. It probably took 3 months to edit that mess. But so Sean Penn, he went and he interviewed El Chapo. It was brokered by a Mexican actress, Kate Del Castillo, who El Chapo was corresponding with, because apparently there were a ton of movie studios that wanted to make a biopic in El Chapo, but El Chapo would only talk to Kate Del Castillo about bringing his story to the big screen, and somehow she got Sean Penn in touch with El Chapo, and now some people are criticizing Sean Penn, saying that he was interviewing this guy when he should have been bringing him to justice, and now other people are saying that whether Sean Penn meant to or not, he helped lead authorities to El Chapo. And I've seen these stories on, True Crime on A&E or America's Most Wanted, where some people, if they cross a Mexican drug cartel, they will travel thousands of miles to kill someone within hours.
Sean Penn is a self-serving jackass. That's the first point of this. If we were to be doing an inverted pyramid style on this story,
that'd be the who, what, where, when, and why.
That would be the lead.
Yeah.
Sean Penn is a self-serving jackass. He always has been. He always will be. Going back to his whole Katrina thing, all that. Okay, he sucks. He really does. And I think I think at the same time, it wasn't necessarily in his lane, mainly because it wasn't in his interest that he had to report El Chapo to the authorities. One of the reasons why was because, well, if he reports El Chapo to the authorities and it's an A to B thing, Sean Penn to prison,
right?
I think it increases his chances of his safety being in danger. At least with this way, does the interview, serves himself, gives himself a nice little 3-month buffer zone, serves himself. The interview gets published, serves himself. And he can still take a little bit of credit for leading him to the authorities, serves himself. He is all nothing, or he is all or nothing, all self-serving or nothing at all. So that's what you have here. Now, is his security in danger? I hope so.
Well,
okay, maybe not.
As annoying as he is, I
don't want to wish death on somebody,
right.
But I mean, just how about a good scare?
Well, you know what? I'm surprised.
I love seeing Sean Penn scared. That what was picture of him and Katrina with the shotgun where he's on the boat? Oh, that's one of my favorites.
He didn't think things were going to get so real down there.
The look of genuine fear in his eyes with that stupid shotgun and that stupid boat. I loved it. Oh, that was one of my favorite things ever. To see that look on his face, like if somebody just flashes a gun at him. How about that? Just have like a Mexican guy.
Right.
You can hire him like a day laborer. He can come by.
What if you just get a bald Mexican guy to smile at Sean Penn on the street?
That might work too. I have a feeling he trusts no one.
You know what?
Probably because he's jacked on cocaine.
Probably. And the only thing he trusts is his coke. What I'm most shocked at is this El Chapo guy seemed to be one step ahead of everyone. Obviously, he was a very smart, cunning, ruthless criminal.
And he had a lot of people on the inside, too. I mean, he obviously had people on the inside of that prison break.
Yeah, and
they had a tunnel for him to ride a motorcycle through to get out of the prison.
Right. And same thing with like a safe house that he was in. And the only reason they caught him is because somehow they knew where the tunnel in a safe house ended up, and it was like a sewer grate like a mile and a half away. But I'm surprised that El Chapo would be so reckless when he was talking to this Kate DeCastile woman. And it just goes to show you, Kyle, a beautiful face. It's Helen of Troy. Wasn't Helen of Troy the woman who launched 1,000 warships? El Chapo was taken down by a beautiful woman who let's face it, he was probably trying to impress and get into the sack.
Yeah, and that's true. It never fails. Like, if there is I'll give you an example. Sean Varichelli, a good buddy of ours.
Sean Cash.
Yeah, Sean Cash.
For our listeners down in Raleigh.
Yeah, Sean Cash, as he's now known. He came back up to Michigan, and we were having drinks at this stupid bar up in Shelby Township. And we just had this 10 out of 10 knockout. Could have been in some, HFM or Maxim or one of those bro magazines, in a swimsuit. She was so hot. And Sean is just Sean, who, by the way, flirted, but he's very devoted to his girlfriend.
Right.
I have to get that out there. But still, she flirted with him, and she was milking him for all he had.
Where did you guys say you were at? Twin Peaks?
No, it was Art and Jake's, which is spawning like a disease all across north of M59.
Wait, were you saying this was the waitress or just some girl there?
The waitress.
Okay.
And she was just flirting relentlessly with him, and he was just all about, oh, yeah, sure, I'll have another drink. Sure, I'll have another drink. Strip clubs. It's the way strip clubs work.
Yeah.
You come in there, you think you're going to leave with a new girl.
That's why when you go to a strip club, the ATM fees are like $7. I heard from a friend.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Yeah.
13 at Bazooki in Greektown, by the way.
Supply and demand.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Pretty girl, or even a hot guy with the ladies, or whatever the sexual orientation. If there's someone you're attracted to, you're gonna listen to them. I'll even give you a little personal example, right? Old Kyle, finds out. Never mind. I'm not going to tell his story.
No, now you got to
tell his story.
No, you jackass. You've got to tell the story. Number one, you ran it out our friend Sean, and now you start a story and you say, I'm not going to tell it. Now you have to tell it. I let you talk about your stupid Starman movie. Now you tell this one. Tell you what, we'll meet in the middle. You tell the story, keep it under 60 seconds.
Keep it under 60 seconds. Okay, well, back in the day, there was a girl from Cleveland.
Oh, Cleveland girl.
Oh, you remember? That's right. I mentioned Cleveland girl on the show before.
Your hot but racist weekend fling.
Yes.
Okay.
And this girl, there was no reason why I should have been even talking to her to begin with. She was psycho. She was a liar. All of that. But she was a very, very pretty face.
Yeah.
And I let that girl talk me into pretty much everything while she was here. Oh, yeah, sure, I'll give you a ride across town. Sure, I'll get on a stupid bus and drive to Cleveland for 7 hours to go see you, which that's how long a bus ride takes to Cleveland.
Yeah, I'll take you to your Klan rally.
Yeah, sure. And, it just on and on. And I'll tell you, again, a pretty face.
Yep.
It can swindle you out of anything, including one of the most powerful drug lords in the world.
A pretty face and a little bit of hope.
That's true.
Yeah.
There's always but they'll give you that hope.
Right.
They'll flirt just a little bit to give you that hope. And yeah, good for them.
The word, you know what?
Good for them.
False hope is worse than straight up no.
That's true.
On anything.
And you'll rarely hear a pretty girl give you a straight up, well, unless you try to seal the deal. Then she'll drop the no on you, but only after you bought her a couple drinks. And good for her.
It's Turn the Radio Off on the Internet.
Turn the radio off with Mike Parsons.
No drug dealers living next to me. Pretty good deal.
Kyle Bauer.
Yeah.
PeopleHateMyPodcast.com.
Parents, this is Milton Crea. What do you get when you mix nail polish remover, drain cleaner, antifreeze, battery fluid, cold medicine, starter fluid, and road flares? The answer? Methamphetamine. Commonly known as speed, crystal meth, or ice, meth is just as addictive and more dangerous than crack cocaine. Repeated use can lead to brain damage, convulsions, even death. Once people start using meth regularly, their life expectancy is 5 years. Spend time with your kids. If you don't, someone else will. This message is brought to you by the Elks National Foundation and the Elks Drug Awareness Program.
Your non-stop alt-talk alternative for 1 hour a week. Turn the radio off. Become a fan at PeopleHateMyPodcast.com.
I have to say, I kind of hate this time of year because for those of us who live in Detroit, it seems like all of our local newscasts are pretty much just PSAs and infomercials for the auto show. I mean, it's like,
which is good. It's a popular event. We need people to go to it for some reason. I guess it affects us,
right? But like today, one of the stations did like a 2-minute piece on the faster Wi-Fi around Kobo just for the auto show. It's like, okay. But one person who was having no fun at the auto show today was one Governor Snyder.
Oh,
He's obviously he was walking around the Kobo showroom floor, and what probably was supposed to be and what normally would be just kind of a PR move. He walks around for an hour, he answers some fluff questions, turned into reporters just wanting to talk about the Flint water crisis. And obviously the Flint water crisis is an absolute disaster. For those that don't know, Flint they were unhappy with the rates that they were paying for Detroit water. The Detroit water system was sending their water all the way out to Flint. Flint didn't want to pay the increased rates, so their city council under an emergency manager, and this is where the details get kind of hazy for me, but the Flint City Council, under an emergency manager, voted to switch from the Detroit water system to a water system that was being built coming from Port Huron, bringing water from Lake Huron to Flint. Well, when that happened, the Detroit water system sent a letter to Flint saying, we're going to cut you off after a year, so you're going to have to make other arrangements. Oh, fine. Hey, you know what? We'll just fire up that, 50, 60-year-old water system. We're going to take water from the Flint River, and that'll tide us over until the new water system from Port Huron is up and running. Well, turns out that river water is a bit more corrosive. At least the Flint River is a bit more corrosive than the water. Where does Detroit get its water from? St. Clair? Do they go out to Huron?
You know, I honestly don't know, and this was something back on my other podcast, Midtown to Metro. I covered the water shutoffs extensively, but I just covered the shutoffs, not the source of the water, so I couldn't tell you.
Well, that was the disaster before the disaster. Long story short, the water from the Flint River, much more corrosive, and not treated the same way Detroit water was treated. And this is kind of gross. I didn't know this, but I guess in every pipe there's like a layer of sediment that insulates the water from the lead of the pipes, which that sounds like a really poor system to begin with, but the water from the Flint River corroded away that layer of sediment, and now lead is being leached into the drinking water of the people of Flint. And there's nothing they could do about it right now. They're back on Detroit water, but they have to build up that sediment again. So even though they're getting the same water that they had before this whole disaster, they're still getting lead in their water because that protective layer has been corroded.
And Snyder, there have been a few questionable things over the years, and people have been quick to want to go for the guy's head. And I've always pumped the brakes on that and said, well, this isn't good, but, this isn't that bad. Then the whole stuff about the DPS and how the DPS has been managed under multiple emergency managers. Right. Detroit Public School, by the way, teachers are having a sick out right now. And if you listen to the conditions that they're reporting in these schools, it's abhorrent. It's
on the news. Between PR pieces for the auto show, they are actually reporting on the conditions of Detroit Public Schools.
And it's been this way for 20 years at least.
Yeah.
It's been this way for 20 years at least. But it's gotten really bad under Snyder's watch, and the deficit has continued to grow. The deficit's almost doubled since Snyder's been governor. And then, so then you hear that and you're thinking, okay, well, yeah, maybe there should be some petitions out there to recall him over this. We're talking about Detroit's, we're talking about the largest city in Michigan. Their school system is failing. And then this happens.
To be fair, though, it was failing long before.
It was failing long before, but he seemed to have sunken in an even deeper hole through his emergency manager program.
Right, got it. Now this happens.
And now this happens, and it's again with his emergency manager program. This happened under his watch, under people that he designated to handle this situation, and you think he's ultimately the head chief in this. It's ultimately his job to vet what these emergency managers are doing, and if not, that is him being negligent of his power. And at the very least, he's been negligent of his power. Snyder better hope that that's all we find, is that he was just being negligent. Because if we find that he actually knew that this water was highly corrosive, that this water had lead levels in it, there are people talking about him going to jail. I won't go that far, but he definitely, without question, should resign, be impeached, or be recalled.
Well, and that's what I'm wondering, too. Obviously, people are pissed about this, and rightly so. I mean, you have
children with lead poisoning.
You have 100,000 people in a major city who are pretty much dying on the vine until years and years of sediment can generate inside the pipes, or a whole new infrastructure can get built.
This was all his idea. He designated people to carry this idea out, and this was all his work. The austerity that led to this plan was his work. The emergency managers that he put in place was his work. Him getting Flint's mayor kicked out of office was basically his work. And then pinning the new mayor with this was basically his work. And the children that are sick from lead poisoning, that's basically his work too. You can trace all of it back to one person.
Right.
And that's Snyder. This is on him. Are there other people who mismanage things? Yes. But who wrote off on it? I don't care if the Flint City Council voted in favor of it. Who put the proposal in front of him? Snyder. I don't care if it was his emergency manager who ultimately made the decision. Who has to sign off on that decision to switch over? Snyder. This has cost millions of dollars to start, could cost over $1 billion by the time it's done, and you have a city, a major city in Michigan, full of sick children. And just one last point, what two cities have suffered the most since Snyder's come into office?
Would it be Flint and Detroit?
Flint and Detroit.
Is that who you're thinking of?
The two cities that were already the most vulnerable, already the highest minority population, already struggling financially. Instead of improving those two cities, and while Detroit has certainly improved in spots, not where it needs to most, but still, these cities have both had water crises, have both struggled, and it's an embarrassment, and he should lose his position because of it.
Right, and I'm with you, Kyle. I mean, I think that he has a lot of responsibility in this. I think, if nothing else comes out, I'm not exactly sure what you can get him on criminally, at least prove in a court of law. But like you said, if it turns out that he knew and let this go on even further, then yes, that's criminal negligence. But right now, at this current point of time, I don't see him facing any criminal charges for this. Now,
no, he'll be protected from that.
Well, some people are saying this could be his legacy. It very well could.
It damn well should be his legacy. What else has this guy done other than, what exactly was his legacy? He was a middling governor who won re-election because he had a non-opponent. Mark Schauer was somebody that the Democrats, who are so belittled in Michigan's House, that they couldn't even conjure up a candidate.
Right.
And that's where a lot of this problem stems from, is Michigan's House and Senate is so loaded with nutjob conservatives like the weirdo Todd Corser and Cindy Gamrett, that, you got all these Bible thumpers who are out having affairs, who are out, trying to restrict power from here. I'm getting so angry I'm losing my place. Point is Snyder's been a disaster, and this is the cherry on top. He only won re-election because he had a non-candidate go up against him, and this should be the end of him. Hopefully it will be, and hopefully he'll have to answer this, because this is disgusting, what's going on in Flint right now.
Well, I think if nothing else, if he had other political aspirations, those can pretty much go away now. Because it's funny, Kyle, at the very beginning of this election season, there were some people talking about him running for president. And you know what?
No.
There's a good chance that because look, a lot of the stuff that he did before this, just like everything else, it could have been spun, right? Like the right to work thing. There's some people who were really pissed about that,
yep.
But there's a lot of people who
do like right to work,
right?
Yeah.
But I think this he doesn't really have anyone supporting him. The only thing he has is people saying, "Well, let's wait until all the facts come out," and if the facts come out, and they're staring you in the face that he was either that he was either incompetent, negligent, or worse, then he's not going to have any political friends left.
Well, I don't know, Mike. You be surprised, because he's got a lot of ghouls in his corner that make up Lansing right now.
But
and,
if this thing gets...
And they will find a way to spin it and somehow blame it on the people of Flint.
If this thing gets much worse than it is, I think right now, you know, there's... I don't want to say there's a way out for him, but I think that if things kind of stay where they are right now and they don't get worse for the governor, I think he could at least pull out of it and not have his name be toxic, so to speak. But if it gets much worse, his name and any association with him is going to be toxic, and nobody's going to want to. Because let's be honest, in politics, just like big business, relationships are made very transactionary. What can you do for me? What can I do for you? And if his reputation takes any more of a hit, his name will be so mud that no one can afford to be associated with him.
Well, again, listen, Mike, and this is why I ultimately think he has to resign or be impeached. And the problem with impeachment is that, again, he's got to have a lot of ghouls in Lansing in his corner who don't care about black people, who don't care about a poor city that can't benefit them economically like Flint. Mm-hmm. They can't kick back off of anything in Flint. Those people are useless to them, so they don't care. And they will spin in defense of Snyder, who is the front of their party. They will try like hell to spin their way out of this, and they won't impeach him. Now, the other thing, too...
I'm not talking about impeachment. I'm just talking about after his term is over.
Right.
You know, because like George W. Bush...
Oh, yeah, he's not gonna... Yeah, right. He's not going anywhere politically after this. I didn't think he was going to anyway. I thought that was such pie in the sky, the idea of this non-factor. That's the thing. Snyder's a non-entity. Yeah, he has a trade history with China. What else? I mean, yeah, sure. What? Oh, is you got to try to say, well, I was the CEO of a Gateway. Well, you ran Gateway out of business. Oh, so you'll be just like Carly Fiorina. Yeah, she's doing great right now, isn't she, Rick? I mean, you got the cute nickname and the cute slogan. I'm one tough nerd.
I think he had other political aspirations.
He did, but he's an idiot.
But up until this happened, I think that he had a chance to at least go far within the party.
He's a non-factor. I think
now he is, but he wasn't before this.
He was always a non-factor to me. I
don't know how you could say that.
If Scott Walker was made to be a non-factor, the way that he was spit up and chewed out by the Republican Party, and I'm not just saying that because he was my pick to come out of the Republican primary at the beginning of the campaign season. But the way he was chewed up and spit out, him and Snyder have eerily similar records.
But you know what?
Walker's a little bit further to the right than Snyder is, but still, point is Rick. His track record was similar to that of Walker's, and if the Republicans were going to get behind him nationally, it would have been on the basis of what Walker was doing, and that's someone who's going to bust down unions, who's going to deregulate corporations, who's going to work on international trade pacts that screw Americans, but we'll say that it lowers costs, so it's better for you.
But you know what? He would have had a couple of years to sort of...
Yeah, I never bought it. I always thought he was a non-factor, and he's showing why he's a non-factor now. The guy's incompetent. He's an imbecile. And the only thing that he's been effective at is bending and twisting the Constitution. Right in the middle of all this, coming out about the Flint water supply, what else does this jackass do? Oh, it comes out that there was that ballot measure, or that there was that bill that he signed where people couldn't talk about ballot measures.
That was
or
weird.
Millages. Yeah, limiting First Amendment rights. You can't tell the media what they can and cannot talk about in the run-up to an election.
Well, you know,
fucker.
Well, that bill was it was public figures couldn't talk about it. So, like, if you're an elected official, you could. Now, I'm not saying it's much better, but I'm just correcting it. That's not him telling it, Kyle. I'm just telling you, it's incorrect to say that it was him. It's a law that tells the media what they can and cannot talk about. The media can talk about whatever they talk about, whatever they want to talk about, but you can't get a senator on to say, "Hey, let's talk about this ballot measure." I'm not saying I'm not defending it. I'm just correcting you.
Okay, well, what I meant to say was in the media, and the point is that you still can't tell someone what they can and cannot talk about.
Fair enough.
And that's what he was trying to do. And what he was trying to do, what are millages oftentimes? Funding for schools, funding for museums, funding for libraries, things that don't interest him because they don't come from China and he can't pillage it.
Right.
Like the punk that he is.
Well, it's funny.
Fuck this guy.
It's funny, Kyle, because, a lot of the things that he's championed, the conspiracy theorist
What,
in me.
cheap labor?
Will you shut up and let me get to my point?
Okay.
You're so combative. You think you're in such a lather right now that you think everything
He
I'm
really
saying,
pisses me off.
I don't, Kyle. What I was gonna say was, the conspiracy theorist in me kind of felt like Governor Snyder was trying to change laws that he didn't like as a businessman, so that he could change those laws and come back and start a company or whatever. Because of course he got rid of right to work, which to me, I was actually a Snyder guy up until the right to work thing, and then that kind of made me raise an eyebrow. And then he was a champion of repealing this tax that a very small amount of people were actually affected by. It was the tax where, if you own something, you have to pay property tax on it every year, and he got that repealed. So I'm like, what this guy's trying to do is he's trying to create his own business climate in the state of Michigan, so that he can come back and dominate, I guess.
He's nothing but a capitalist. And yes, capitalism can work and can be good for people. Of course it can. But if you abuse it and if you use it as your only interest, you're going to end up hurting people because people aren't dollar figures.
Right.
And that's clearly what he did. He forced Flint into austerity. He put in his own people in Flint and Detroit and Battle Creek, and communities all over Michigan. And in some spots, it didn't work out bad. I mean, you got to say that it wasn't a disaster in Detroit. I think Kevin Orr did a good job.
Yeah.
I think he did. And I thought Detroit's situation was a very difficult one to say any elected official could come in and fix it. But in Flint, that was all his work. And like I said, it's negligence at best.
It's funny because what Kevin Orr did for what would have been Snyder's legacy, the Flint water crisis did the opposite. And you're right, Kyle. He obviously Rick Snyder probably didn't purposefully it's not like Rick Snyder set out to poison Flint's water supply, but like you said, his policies,
unless he was planning to privatize the water system.
Maybe.
Ooh. Well, look at all this bad water. See, if you take my company, we can put in a privatized water pump.
Well, there is a company. I don't know.
Snyder's going to start selling water purifiers.
I don't know if. Well, that'd be a bad business move because they're giving them out for free.
Right.
Unfortunately, there's not enough to give out to. But you know what? I don't know if that water authority that's coming from Port Huron, if that's municipal or if it's private. I got to be honest. That's a very interesting point you bring up.
Well, I know that there were people who were interested in buying. There were companies that have been interested in buying water in the Detroit area, out of the St. Clair River, and also in some portions of the Great Lakes. There are companies that are looking to privatize it, and it was something that was briefly touched into. I got to go back and not to tout my own stuff, but I got to go back and listen to this one interview I did with the Detroit Water Authority, or with the I can't even remember their name. I'm having a brain cramp right now. But Detroit Water Brigade, that I did with the Detroit Water Brigade, where they brought up some interesting points that Snyder has been looking to do deals to sell water. But obviously nothing has been completed as of yet, but there has been talk of some water privatization going back to a couple years ago. But I really don't think that that's a serious conspiracy theory. I just think that Snyder played fast and loose with his emergency manager law because he doesn't care about the people of Flint.
Well, and here's the thing. If you're going to put something
doesn't want to poison them, but he doesn't care about them.
If you're going to put something as divisive and as politically scary in place as an emergency manager, you better make sure that it goes flawlessly. You better make sure that it turns out like Kevin Orr in Detroit. And, I mean, you think about it, and you know what? I guess you're thinking, what could they have tested for this? And I guess I don't know how you could test for it, because once you find lead in the drinking water, it's already too late.
Right.
But I guess the cost of treating the corrosiveness in the water would have only cost about $100 a day. And if you take $100 a day, how long was, how long did Flint need to be on their...
Flint needs austerity.
How long did Flint need to be on the backup water supply? Like 2 years?
Yeah.
So you take 365 times 2. Hold on, let me get out my calculator because I'm bad at math. 365 times 2. Okay, that's 730 times 100. That is $73,000 they would have had to spend.
And now it's costing them $12 million. And
At
it may cost
least.
them over $1 billion once this is all done.
Oops.
Oh, it's $12 million up front. Well, it's our rainy
Right.
day fund that we had stored
Right.
away because I'm fiscally responsible.
So thinking about this logically, Kyle,
Real responsible, Rick.
because a lot of people are fired up and angry. If you cost your company as much money as this mess, and you could have avoided it for just a fraction of what it costs, you're fired.
Yeah.
You're fired.
That's right. And he should be fired. He should. But like I said, I foresee him having to resign to get out, for this to be over with him leaving office. And unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. Like I said, there's so many and there's enough old white people that are going to have Snyder's back no matter. Snyder could come out and say that he purposefully gave those kids in Flint lead poisoning, and there are still people who would support him. I'm telling you, Mike, it doesn't matter to some folks out there. It really doesn't, because it doesn't affect them.
Well, here's the thing I would say. All right, Governor, if this was if this is such an unforeseen circumstance and you're doing your best to fix it, fix it.
If there are conservatives out there who aren't just all talk, who aren't just about ghoulish, hypocritical policy, which is what we've seen since 2010 in this state, if there are politicians out there, we hear all this talk about you guys being fiscally conservative, preaching fiscal responsibility, talking about punishing cities like Detroit and Flint for squandering money and going so far into the deficit. Well, Snyder, at least up front, has cost the state $12 million, and it's going to cost a lot more than that before this is over. Okay, well, there's your money where your mouth is supposed to be.
Yep.
So, hey, how about it? How about impeaching this guy? How about calling for a recall? But again, if it goes to a recall, unfortunately, I think he would win. Because, again, the Democrats are so spineless in this state that they can't produce a candidate to go up against them. I'd love to say you could put a cardboard cutout up against Snyder, but it would probably lose because, again, you have a lot of rigid white folks who don't care about the people of Flint, who don't care about the people of Detroit, who don't care what Snyder's done to them.
When is Snyder's term up?
He was reelected in 2014, but I think his term officially started in 2015, right?
This is something I should know. I'm
Yeah,
wondering.
He was reelected, though. I remember it was November 2014 was when he was reelected.
Okay, so 2015. It's 2016. Okay, I mean, I guess maybe there's enough time in his term left that it wouldn't be a waste of time to impeach him because
No,
to
it
recall
wouldn't.
him Because, how long does that take? A year and a half, maybe?
Yeah, but like I said, though, he's going to have to resign. And it's going to have to come from national and federal pressure for him to resign, like national media. Because local media, even though the Free Press wrote that editorial really digging at him this past weekend, still, Free Press has kissed his ass.
Well,
the news has certainly kissed his ass. All the local media are too busy doing reports about scrappers to really go after him about this.
Well, and, here's the reality of it, Kyle. Even though this shows gross negligence and lack of foresight and incompetence, I'm not sure legally if there's enough evidence
to directly make him culpable. That's an argument,
right.
But it's definitely something. It definitely needs to be looked into. And let me tell you something too about 2, 4, and 7. And I tread lightly because I know I have friends who work at these stations, and I'm not saying this as an indictment of them, but the problem with 2, 4, and 7 is that they know their demographic too well. They know their demographic to have a spine about things like this. And you had all 3 of their investigative reporters and then some going to the mat on Kwame Kilpatrick. And you know why they could get away with that? Because he was black. Because he was seen as part of the problem, further pulling down Detroit into the abyss, which is the average 2, 4, and 7's viewers' former home, childhood home, that they now believe is a bombed-out crack house, whether it really is or not.
Well, I do have to speak up for Help Me Hank. I can only speak up for Help Me Hank because 4 is the only one I watched. But he the other day he was peppering the governor with some questions. Now,
good.
Maybe
I'm glad to hear that then. But I'm saying that they're not going to go after Snyder because again, they're not going to go after Snyder like they went after Kilpatrick. They should, but they won't. And again, why? Because they know their demographic doesn't want to see that. They know their demographic likes Snyder.
Well, and one final thing, because we do have to get out of here. The other thing is, okay, well, Snyder screwed up. His policies led to what's happening, but okay, you get rid of him. Who are you going to put in place to clean up the mess? And do you want to take away from the process of cleaning up this whole Flint mess? Because now that the light shined on him, Kyle, he's got no choice but to work to fix it.
I would love that if see, that's the other thing too. It might mean Bill Schuette. And Bill Schuette would be a freaking nightmare. Bill Schuette, if you can't remember, is the far-right religious zealot who has done everything in his power to keep gay marriage from being legal in the state of Michigan. This guy's a fucking nightmare. And he's also, right now, his current crusade is to prevent pot from being legalized in Michigan. He's gearing up for that battle.
Well, he has actually given up
this year.
He actually has finally given up the fight about the gay marriage, I think.
Well, because he has no choice to, Mike. But, I mean, he died on that hill.
Right.
Nearly died on that hill.
Right.
And that guy, he's gearing up to run in Snyder's place in 2018, but trust me, I don't want him sitting there on the sidelines jumping in. And that's the other problem, is that again the Democrats, the strongest Democrats in the state are established senators that are going nowhere, that have a ton of power where they're at,
right,
and they would lose it if they became governor. So it's not like you're going to see Debbie Stabenow step up and take Rick Snyder's place or go at him in a recall election. She's going nowhere. And that's the problem of the Michigan Democrats is they have no depth, and everyone on a representative level is, again, spineless.
Right. And we are way past time, so we have to go. PeopleAndMyPodcast.com. Bye.